It's not magic. It's not luck. You can build a system. You can change personally. Your company can change. All the greats went through this process. You can too.
Today is the day, episode 1 of the Badass Leaders podcast. I'm so excited. We have been waiting over 6 months to record this episode. You are going to love it. Who is it? It's Scott Wozniak, who is the CEO of Swaz Consulting, where he advises leaders across 6 continents, including entrepreneurs in Silicon Valley, multi-generational family businesses, and executives at Fortune 500 companies. He's also the author of incredible business and leadership books, including Make Your Brand Legendary, which you've read if you have ever worked with me in the past 6 months, because I send a copy of it to every customer I work with. Yes, you heard it right. I love this book. Scott's expertise in organizational leadership is rooted in both practical experience and academic study. He holds a master's degree in business with a focus on organizational leadership, and he's worked with some of the most influential brands of our time, including industry giants like Nucor Steel and the beloved restaurant chain Chick-fil-A. He is a self-proclaimed lifelong learner, and today we have the joy of learning with and from him. So, join me, Angela Gill Nelms, on today's episode of the Badass Leaders podcast, where I'm joined each week by industry experts for intimate and eye-opening discussions about the challenges and joys facing the leaders of today. Listen in and get ready to scale your company, grow your brand, and unlock your full badass potential. So I reached out to you over 6 months ago, and I will say to the listeners, we have Scott Wozniak, and he's the author of Make Your Brand Legendary, which, I hated.
Nice. Yeah.
I hated. Clearly. I have read this book at least 6 times. I have bought over 25 copies because I have given it to customers as gifts.
Nice.
In fact, I'm trying to decide whether or not it would be passive aggressive if I gave my little small claims court event this morning, if I mailed him a copy of the book. We did talk about the book after we settled.
Okay. Hey.
So this book, I've lived my life on this. Yes. And so what I will say is I loved the book Raving Fans.
Mm-hmm. Same.
And, it was published in 93. That's when I graduated high school. I turned 50 this year.
Congratulations.
Thank you. And so in my early days as a leader, I was always thinking about Raving Fans. Like that was burnt into my head. Okay. Yeah. And then when I stumbled upon your book, I said to everyone, Make Your Brand Legendary is like Raving Fans on steroids. Like to me, Raving Fans gave a lot of concepts. And what you've done in here is you've created a roadmap to take it to success. And so hence in my previous company, for my customer experience team, I made it a mandatory read.
Yes.
We did a field trip to Buc-ee's.
Come on. That's a great one.
Right?
Yes.
I have pictures of this. I will go ahead and admit I am not a Buc-ee's person. It's stimulation overload for me.
I get it. It's actually not my favorite, but I respect what they did.
Yeah. Love it. Okay, so now is my time to stop talking because I want you to introduce yourself and tell us why you're here today.
Yeah. So funny, Raving Fans, you mentioned it. That is a big part of my story and how we got here. So I have had a crazy fun career with a lot of zigzags, but the highlights are this. I graduated high school here in the Atlanta area where the studio is, and you and I both live, and had some wonderful high school friends that become a really big deal later in the story. But at the time, I went off and had other adventures and eventually ended up leading some stuff. And I read Raving Fans and thought this is a really cool idea. Unfortunately, I had a problem that a lot of the people I was working with was we got all excited and had grand vision, but we had no idea how to get there.
Yep.
And I'm saying it really politely. Let me be real clear. I worked for some really nice guys who were really bad leaders.
That is actually one of the questions that Katie, our producer and our client relations, is actually this one, learn versus innate. So that was going to be the first question I was going to ask you about this.
It's a big deal.
Huge, right?
Like wonderful, meaning human beings. They're not immoral. They're not jerks.
Right.
And it was, and I don't mean like bad leaders, like I was annoyed, like it wrecked the organization. That organization doesn't exist anymore. Then went to another one and it was good. Went to a third one, it was bad. And it was like this zigzag of like good and bad leaders, and the bad ones were really bad and they meant well. And it comes back to the book Raving Fans. Wonderful idea. I buy the concept. I'm in on the vision. I have no idea how to do it. Right. So, long story short, that pain caused me to start studying leadership and business and strategy and systems. And honestly, I say business. I actually didn't want to study business. At the time, I was in nonprofit work, working with these kids programs, sports camps, and inner city youth programs, and these wonderfully noble things, noble people doing noble work.
Right.
And blowing it, right? And in the process of me trying to figure it out, because I wasn't very good either, like I made a lot of my own bad leadership choices. That's what led me into business, as people started handing me business books. And I'm like, I'm not a business guy. And they're like, read the book. And so John Maxwell books were some of my early ones that was just like, oh, and Ken Blanchard. Those two guys were like the early people that I was devouring, because it's around the same window as you. As I'm like, wait, what's out there? And these things are hitting it. But the challenge was, at first especially, got it, leadership, customer experience, like what do I do with that? And it drove me further. So I ended up going to school, getting a master's in business, because I had to figure out how do you actually implement it. Right. So that leads me back to my high school friend, which leads me to what I do today. So I happened to go to high school with a guy named Andrew Cathy. Andrew and I played 3 sports together.
Small name.
Yeah, it's this little local mom and pop,
Right,
Atlanta,
I know exactly.
Atlanta folks,
They thought chicken would be good in a sandwich.
Yeah, it's this weird idea.
I know, right?
And so, yes, if you're not in on the joke, Andrew Cathy's the grandson of the founder of Chick-fil-A, and Andrew's actually currently the CEO. So, back then I was like, it's 35 years ago or something. I was like, hey, good luck with your little mall restaurant. Hope you make it. Yeah, they're going to make it, Angela.
Yeah, I actually worked a lot with Chick-fil-A last year at my previous job.
Right.
And have so many experiences I've actually used, side note in this is that I did a project with Chick-fil-A last year. I'm actually interviewing for a new job, and I used them as a reference, had a great experience with them. Mm-hmm. And part of it was scanning their stores. So I got to tour the store. I got to see them in the middle of the chaos. Yes. I also got to see them at night when no one was there and see all the little cards they have along the way. Mm-hmm. And I took pictures of those because one of the things is I'm really opposed to companies who put their values on the wall and they don't follow any of them.
Oh, yeah. I'd rather you not put the values on the wall.
Exactly. Don't do that. Okay. But the reason that I took photos and then sent it to my team was what they have done is they have said, this make eye contact, make a personal connection. I can't remember what the 4 are that are at the register. The point being is that it's there and they're actually doing it. Yes. And it makes an impact.
Yes. Good-hearted, and they actually deliver.
Right.
What? So I became a consultant, and now I'm back in Atlanta visiting my family and friends. I moved out to where the school was, met my wife there, had settled down, and I was just visiting people here in Atlanta. And now my Chick-fil-A buddies are like, wait, what are you doing? And so long story short, I moved back to Atlanta, and my job at Chick-fil-A was to go figure out, how do we actually do this stuff? We need to keep growing. We have these cool ideas. And so what it tactically was is I spent 50% of my time traveling the world, go inside other companies, rolling up my sleeves, joining their teams, learning how they actually did it. And then the other half the time I came back, I was like, okay, I'd come back from all that travel and say, here's what I learned. Let's turn it into some sort of upgrade at Chick-fil-A. And I would lead that project. And the first major trip I took for them, they sent me to Ken Blanchard to talk about Raving Fans.
Oh, wow.
And so...
Okay, I just got chills. I'm super envious, so carry on.
Oh, Let me do a little brag that has nothing to do with me, because Ken didn't know who I was from Adam at that point, right?
Right.
They're like, hey, we got a guy. Can our guy come talk to you? And so I go out there. I'm thinking I'm going to meet at his office. And they're like, actually, Ken's working from home today. So we swapped it up. You don't mind meeting at his house, do you? And I was like,
oh my gosh.
For Ken, I mean, sure.
It'd be tough. I'll sacrifice. Take one for the team.
That's right. So I rolled up and spent the day in Ken Blanchard's house, sitting in his living room. We had lunch over there, hanging out, talking about projects and ideas, because the whole thing was, we love this concept, how do we tactically do
Right.
it?
Right.
And so that became my job, is to build what we end up calling the engine, the customer experience
Yep.
engine, that this is the way you do it. So the connection you made is like Raving fans to this is not an accidental connection.
Love it.
That's literally what I do. And I did it for Chick-fil-A. And then I did leave Chick-fil-A as a staff member. I launched my own consulting, and the first client to sign me
Was Chick-fil-A.
Yeah, Chick-fil-A.
Yep.
So I'm still with them, but now in a 1099 capacity. So
I love it.
yeah, this is what I do. I get to now just help people build the systems that create Raving fans. It's so fun.
So it is a roadmap to Raving fans, and I am obsessed with everything to do with that. I'm obsessed with just the customer experience engine. In fact, in my interviews on Friday, I talked about several of the different philosophies of that the
Yes.
organization I'm going to really needs, and how I would implement them, and reference the book. I'll go ahead and say this now. I was, as you know, in small claims court this morning.
Yes,
I've never been in court in my life.
It's an experience.
It's an experience. And it was from a dispute from a moving company from years ago.
Okay.
And to protect the guilty, I'm not going to name who the company is.
Okay, fair.
But what is funny about it is that, you know, he and I, we stepped out, and because they want you, of course, to talk, and I'm all about, hey, let's find out a resolution to this. But the service I had from them, and later in the book, I'll find the card. You talk about, let me find out where it is. You talk about that being inconsistently excellent is the same as being consistently bad.
Yeah.
And so I had this instance where, and I am going to find, okay, it's on page 75 of the book. I'm going to read the quote that you said of this. Maybe I'll get smaller note cards. I mean, smaller flags at some point.
Love it.
Okay. So yeah, on 75, you say, the hard truth is being inconsistently excellent will earn you the same amount of trust as being consistently bad. And so I want to say a couple of things, and I'll tell you my little story, because we're both storytellers.
Yeah, come on.
So one thing I want to say, if someone's listening and they think, oh, we're pretty good most of the time, that's good enough. Okay? This is reminding us it's not good enough, right? Because people only remember the times. People often only leave reviews when they're really dissatisfied. We know this about the psychology of this. So I used this moving company, and I had used them once before.
Okay.
Actually, I had this instance where I was moving from a condo. I had the condo staged. They moved the boxes into storage we weren't using.
Yep.
And then the condo sold quickly.
Okay.
And so I said, hey, had a great experience with you. I want to book you to finish the packing and then do the second move, right?
Yeah.
Polar opposite experience. It was so horrific. And the amount they they had quoted me a max amount of like $2,100.
Okay.
And then they tried charging me $5,000
Oh, for a bad experience.
for a horrible that I had to have friends go over there and get the stuff they left behind. I had to make concessions in the sales of the place because I had to fix some damage that they did, right? And they wanted to charge me more than double, okay?
Wow.
So I had already paid $2,500 or something, and I just said, I'm not paying the rest of that. Like this is ridiculous. And I said, look, I'll go to Better Business Bureau. I'll mediate with you. And if a third party thinks I'm crazy, I mean, I am a little bit crazy, right? So fast forward all these years, they finally served me, and the court was this morning. These things don't happen by accident. These timing,
Yeah.
because so we go out to try and discuss it, and of course the gentleman I'm with he wasn't even employed there at the time, right? And I said, can I just share with you the journey I experienced? And so I go through it. Long story short, I do believe in doing what's fair. So I said, this is how much I'm willing to pay you, which was $1,400.
Okay.
And I'm not paying the other $1,000.
Yeah.
And I'm fine going to court, to trial for that, because they said I have to go to trial. Anyways, long story short, he accepted that amount of money. And then he and I were just having casual conversation. And I said, I'm interviewing Scott Wozniak. He wrote this amazing book. I had this book with me because I didn't know how long I was going to be in court.
Right.
And I was like, I need to prepare. And I said, you might consider, I don't mean this to be condescending at all, but you might consider maybe sharing it with your leadership team. Or I said, he's Atlanta based, maybe even reaching out to him for consulting. Now, I won't tell you this gentleman's name. He knows you he's like, I know who he is.
That's awesome.
On LinkedIn. And I said, well, that's great. Maybe you can get a connection with him. But we talked about how we talked about empowering your team members to be able to make decisions on things and how that can help with culture.
Yeah.
And so here we are, the people sitting outside of court talking about your book and about how to improve a company.
Wow. It's real. I'll say two things. First, the consequences of this are real. Like, I don't like that quote. I hate that quote.
Right.
But it hit me in the face too many times for me to like, hey, maybe there's something here. And I'll be honest, the second thing I'm thinking is, man, do I need to like troll small claims court? Is there clients? It's like the ambulance chaser of the consulting world, right? Like, hey.
Just maybe have an intern.
That's right.
Be like,
send somebody to be like, did you have a bad experience? And hand out a book. That's funny.
Here is how you can. I mean, I think oftentimes, and what I explained to him, I said, I have built a personal brand and company brands, turning companies that have challenging customer experiences. My first company I built, one of the reasons we were so successful is I said, we have to give white glove customer service. Software people don't. And I said, you know what? We are the new gold standard, not them.
Come on.
So when I think about this, and I think about the idea that being inconsistently, and I'll read it again. Okay, so it's page 75 in your operational excellence section, which as a former COO, I loved operational excellence. The whole chapter is amazing. Okay, so the hard work is being inconsistent, or the hard truth rather, is that being inconsistently excellent will earn you the same amount of trust as being consistently bad, which this ties into a trust issue that you talk about a lot throughout the book.
Yeah, trust is the first big question. The question they're asking before anything else matters, they ask, can I trust you?
Right.
And if they can't answer that with a yes, then nothing else you say is believed. Like, you have to establish trust. And when they do trust you, there's a ton of benefits. It's so important. And so the reason this is about consistency is because it's the nature of trust. Trust is, I'm confidently able to predict that this is going to work out this way. And so that's the issue with inconsistency. And it's a high bar. So one of the people I pick on in the book is McDonald's.
Yes, a lot.
As a Chick-fil-A guy, I think I'm contractually obligated to mock McDonald's on a regular. No, I love McDonald's. They're great guys.
And their fries are great when they're hot.
Very good. They make. This is being recorded. I'll say
I
it.
know,
I'll put it on
they
record.
are better than Chick-fil-A's fries.
They are. They're just so good. If they're fresh. The problem is not that I've never had good fries there. It's that I've also had cold, chewy ones.
Right.
And so when you look at McDonald's numbers, the McDonald's guys will get upset. I've worked with some of them. They're wonderful people. And they'll be like, what's the big deal? We're not that bad. And you look at their numbers, they're actually not that bad. They have a terrible reputation here.
It's like their reputation with their ice cream machines.
Oh, so yes, it's always famously broken, right?
Right.
And there's literally measures that will show 85 to 90% of the time they're up and functioning. And so the hard truth is...
let's repeat that. So 85 to 90% of being good...
Yes.
...still leads McDonald's ice cream machines to being thought of as always broken, which is the 10 to 15% reality.
That's it. So what I'll say it like this way. I'll make it melodramatic, but still true. 85 to 90% excellent is enough to make you famously broken.
I mean...
That's how bad it is. It's consistent or it's not. Now, you don't have to be perfect. I'm not saying you can't ever mess up, but you can recover. If it's once in a blue moon, you recover really well, you're very generous, and you go back to normal. But 1 out of 10 times is enough to say, I don't care how good your recovery is. We just stop believing you anymore.
Right.
And we're like, it's just not going to work. And so there's a lot of work as a whole. That's why it's systems and tools. You don't get here through motivational speeches. But when you do, this alone will set you apart in many cases from your industry. Most industries, most of us have given up on great excellence.
We think, for example, I was just talking about a moving service.
Yes.
And when I first started talking to him, I said, we have this idea that excellent white glove service doesn't apply in certain areas, right?
Yes.
Like hospital. I love on your podcast. So Scott, this was going to be a great streamlined interview back in June or July when I reached out to you, right? Because I just read the book, right?
Yeah.
And then you'd already reviewed the consulting or read the book, and then I found your podcast. Oh, and now you've started the academy.
Yes, lots of content, lots of stories.
Katie today was like, I don't know how I'm going to keep this to an hour. This is too amazing. One of the things I was thinking about, though, in this, about the trust part, and when you were just talking about that you don't have to be perfect. A story I love about that is when I was helping to build Florence Healthcare, our first huge company was US Oncology. And I remember the Saturday when we rolled out the software, I was there watching it on my computer. My team in Belgrade was watching it, and my customers were also watching it on their computers. Guess what happened? It crashed. And you know what we did? Well, first off, and I think this is another sign of good leadership, is that you don't point fingers.
Yes.
This isn't, these types of things.
That's right.
So my CEO, Ryan Jones at the time, is a phenomenal leader. And he and I talked and we said, okay, we're going to roll it back, right? And we're going to tell everyone to shut their laptops for the weekend.
Yep.
Monday, we'll get all together and we'll start piecing through and figure out what happened.
Yeah.
But the trust piece was, we were very transparent with our customer. I basically said to the customer, well, that sucked.
Yeah.
And you watched that.
Yeah.
And now this is our action plan to figure it out. We gained so much trust.
Thank you.
That customer then, and they also had a story. We talk about having stories, not facts, right? So, but they had a story and they were our constant raving fans to things. And we weren't perfect, but we were honest.
Yes.
And we really cared.
Yes.
And we figured it out as a team.
That's it. And that's the game. If you think about it from a trust frame, then you open up. Now you still work hard and you still do excellence, but you're like inviting them with you onto the journey, explain how, get their input. You win trust, you've won 80% of the game.
Absolutely.
It's difficult, it's intense, and man, it pays off in spades.
So back to my very original question, since I still have the card on top,
come on.
is, as you said in a past interview, you worked with some really nice guys who are really bad leaders. So the top of mind for Katie was, to what extent do you think leadership is innate versus leadership can be learned?
So leadership, I'll come back to the exact question, but first let me say what I think leadership is.
Yes.
Leadership is a set of behaviors that makes other people better at their job. Like you show up and they perform better because of you.
You help make everyone around you the best person they can possibly be.
We all have some tasks we do that don't empower other people or shift their behavior, right? We just got stuff to do. That's not the leadership part of your job. The leadership part of your job is how you empower, affect, influence, nudge, for good or for ill, the other people's job, right?
Perfect.
Okay, so then what you can do is you can list out what are those behaviors, what things help people perform better or worse, right? I do think some people have more kind of in their natural wiring and their upbringing and kind of who they were in their world. They do have some of these behaviors that help others do better. Optimists. There's a clear genetic bent towards optimism or pessimism. There's actually pros and cons for like living a good life. You kind of need a little bit of both. But it's also clear from the research that optimists inspire other people. You bring up the upside, you have high energy.
Simon Sinek, if he's listening right now, would be super excited.
Absolutely.
Since his podcast is a bit of optimism and
That's
he's
it.
an eternal optimist.
He's not wrong. There's a reason that it's working, right?
Right.
Okay, so does that mean like, oh, well, dang it, I wasn't born an optimist, so I guess I'll never be a good leader? No, there's a set of behaviors that you can say, hey, I naturally skew to the negative, but I'm going to force myself to think about the upside. Even the worst pessimist can consider the upside, and even the best, craziest, wildest, naivest optimist can think about the downside.
And should.
Thank you. Thank you. And so the process is like, okay, what are those behaviors? Some of them are going to be natural to me, and that means it's just easier for me to do this. And some of them are not, and I'm going to have to work a little harder to be more intentional and disciplined to do those things. And sometimes it'll be like, well, listen, it's just who I am. Actually, this is not what other people said. This is what I said. Back in my early days, I'm like, listen, this is me. And like, you're asking me to be someone I'm not. And so the hard lesson I'd say to leaders is, if you don't want to adjust for other people, then don't become a leader.
I love this. Exactly.
The nature of leadership is that you show up to help others. You are there to enhance their life and their performance. And so it's a servant posture. Now, it's not just serving, it's a leadership, but the way I lead, why I lead is to help them. And you know what? If doing something that is harder on me makes your life better, that's what it means to be a leader. So this is where it gets weird. It's like, I would say the short answer to your question is no, leadership can be learned. It's a set of skills. I wasn't a great leader. I was one of the guys who was a nice guy, but not a good leader. And I've gotten to the place where people now tell me I'm a good leader, and I've written leadership books. And
But you're on this podcast, which means you're officially a badass leader.
okay, come on.
So there you go.
Done. New title.
New
It's
title?
going on LinkedIn this afternoon.
Yes.
Come on.
That would make me so happy. I
So,
swear.
That's awesome. I'll have to run that by my marketing team.
Yeah, see what your marketing
But
team
it's worth a
does.
shot.
Go
That's
for
worth
it.
a shot. So I say that to say I learned it. It can be learned. Was it a hard work? Now, there's some zones. The optimist part happens to be natural to me. Some of the consistent excellence, that was the hard part for me.
Yeah.
I was the guy who was like all vision and hype, and then like, yeah, but are you going to deliver this time? And I'd get distracted and forget. And so learning that was difficult, was costly, but man, it has paid off in spades. And so leadership can be learned, but that doesn't mean you don't have innate things that I'm better at this or worse at that. Great. Welcome to leadership. We can all get there.
And hey, oh, by the way, as we mentioned, being a great leader means you help bring out the best of all those other people. So also identifying things that you're not great at can also mean that you identify the people on your team who are great at those things.
Yes.
And you collaborate really closely together. Even if it's like, hey, we're going to have a safe word. You know, one of the things that I found out about myself and my leadership style, one of my bad leadership moments was I figured out, I had this one point when I was running Florence Healthcare and I managed 2/3 of the company. So I was constantly going from this meeting to this meeting to this meeting and context switching, right? It wasn't even in one theme. It was like marketing and product and dev and customer experience and finance. And what I started doing is I would go into the meeting just ready to solve the problem. Like just I'm in problem solving mode.
Yeah.
So this is my podcast, so I can say the word bitch. I literally would have that behavior, not intentionally. Like I love people.
Right.
You know, I want to know the science behind if people who are service oriented are also better leaders. I have no idea, but I suspect that that's a case. I just recently was listening to Simon's interview with the Attorney General, and he's putting out his initiative and what for America as he leaves office. He talks a lot about the health benefits of service, friendship, these types of things. And so I suddenly occurred to me, wait, I always had this service mentality growing up, and I think that fostered into it. Anyways, back to me not being a service, back to me being this bitchy leader that's coming in and being aggressive. We had an executive coach and best hire we made and worked with the C-level team, completely changed all of us. It was, yes.
My life's been changed by coaching.
Yes.
Like my coaches have changed my life.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
Exactly. And she helped identify this. And so going back to what I was originally saying is what I ended up doing is I said to my team, okay, here's the deal. What success looks like in the meeting is that we come up with a solution together that we can create together. And I said, now what I've noticed is when my meetings are booked back to back to back without a break, then I lean towards this unhealthy behavior.
Yeah.
So the thing I'm going to do is I'm going to ask that these buffers be put in. And secondly, I'm going to ask you to, via a safe word, tell me. Actually, with that group, I said, just say, Angela, you're being a bitch right now.
I mean, an unsafe word, right?
Whatever it is.
I'm joking.
But my point being is that I said,
call
hold
it.
me accountable.
That's right. Call me out.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I love that. Okay. So one of the comments that you talk, and this is actually at the end of the book, and I wonder if this was, I want to read this. Okay, we started in the beginning, now let's go to the end.
Yeah.
And this is about why we don't want satisfied customers. Okay, so you say you don't have to choose between being good and being successful. You can build an engine that does both. What if you had a core group of customers who were raving fans, who bought everything you made, recruited more raving fans for you? What if your staff was proud to be associated with you and your company? What if your customers went out of their way to spend more with you? All the things that raving fans do. And what if you didn't worry much about the rise and fall of the economy? What would your life be like if you had a customer experience engine like that? You don't have to settle for satisfied customers. And I highlighted this point because you talk about the difference between satisfied customers and raving fans. So can you define what the difference is between the two?
Yeah.
And really how you bridge the gap?
Yeah. So the first difference is in the buying behavior. I mean, let's just get real specific. Raving fans buy more often than your satisfied customers. Satisfied customers buy when they have a need in the moment, but it's get the minimum. This is fine. I don't need the extras, and they're not looking to come back. Raving fans say, how do I get more? How do I come back? Like, we got to do that again. In the end, the experience is so good. They're like, I want more of that experience. The value so high, the feelings involved, all the stuff that we get into in the rest of the book. So that's the first is like, it's pretty simple. How much do they buy? Now, for each business, there's a line or a number that you're going to figure out. And some people, there's fewer deals and they're bigger, right? And so it's not going to be like weekly transactions. It may be every 5 years, like a realtor, right? People don't sell their home 3 times a year.
Right.
Not normal people. I'm sure somebody out there is doing that.
You can post about it in the comments and let us
right.
know your experience.
That's right. For the rest of us, right, that realtor is not, but it could be that more often it's like, hey, I want to do more, or they're going to get to the next behavior, which is raving fans tell others, you got to come by from, like, you got to work with her. She's awesome. You got to get in this, that word of mouth referral. So they don't just have a great experience. They even go to the point where they're telling everyone else, you got to have this experience. And so they grow that word of mouth. Whereas like a restaurant, right? It's like, I could come back monthly. I could come back weekly. There's some restaurants, Starbucks, people go back daily, right?
Right.
It's recurrence. And then the last layer is really the pricing, and they pay full price. If they really love you, they don't need a discount, special deal, coupon. In fact, what we found is that the more
I was hoping you would talk about this.
Good.
Yes.
The more you discount, the harder it is to create raving fans. They're actually opposing forces. And it's not that if you offer a discount, you're ruined. You can't do it. Like, no, it just adds a penalty.
I mean,
to
come
the
on,
process.
Scott. I'm going to be devil's advocate. We just had Black Friday. Everyone loves a good sale.
Oh, that's the issue. Discounts work too well. Everyone gets excited, but they get excited about the price, not about you. Oh yeah, Black Friday's hype and excitement. But think about like, what do I, here's actually what happens. Once you buy at a discount, you can't feel good paying full price again.
Yep.
Like, you've been trained. So everything you bought at cheap on Black Friday, now if you go need it and you look at the prices 6 weeks later, we're recording this, maybe like 2 months after that.
Right.
So it's like, wait a minute. I already bought it for this price. Now you want me to pay that? Oh, I'm not doing that.
Yeah, I bought a Roomba for $600. I'm not paying $800 for it now.
Thank you. I'll wait to the next sale.
Right.
And so they train us to get lower. My favorite example of this here in America is the pizza. So we have pizza chains that are delivery pizzas. They're not sit-down restaurants. So Papa John's, Pizza Hut, Domino's, these guys, right? Well, let me put you on the spot. When you order a pizza, before you pick your pizza, what's the first thing you look at?
Oh, I'm going to be a bad example for this because I only like Papa John's.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So when you go to Papa John's, do you go straight to their menu, or do you look at their specials and coupons?
I look at their specials and coupons.
That's what I'm saying. Like, everyone's got their favorite brand, but you don't go to the menu.
No.
You go to the coupons.
Yes.
Like, every pizza chain is stuck in America in the discount trap.
Grocery stores.
That's right. Like, I shop. I'm not waiting till next week when it's on a buy one get one. I'm not buying it this week. The coupon drives the behavior. So here's the sticky part, the dangerous part. The dangerous part about this is that the grocery store is thinking these coupons are work. When I run the coupon, we sell a lot of yogurt. What they don't realize is that coupon is depressing the purchase of that yogurt every other time. Once we buy at a discount, we can't feel good paying full price again. And so you create this expectation that the price is not the price. In fact, technically, you erode the credibility of your quality. Every time they buy at a discount, it just washes away. That's not actually the price. It's actually not worth that. And this is where it gets fuzzy. I want to say with my marketing, I'm stinking awesome. I'm brilliant. Our product's awesome. We're so premium. And then I say with our pricing, but actually we're cheap. But actually that premium price isn't the real price. The stuff that's the sticker price isn't the price. And you just muddy the water and you're like, I'm awesome, but I'm cheap. But I'm awesome, but I'm cheap. And like, make up your mind. Pick a price. Stick with the price. I'm all about promotions. There's all sorts of creative ways to drive interest, limited time offers, bonuses, but discounting is the worst version of that. And so if you can avoid the discounts. Find another way to attract attention and excitement, because every time you discount, you make it less believable that you're actually the quality player.
Okay, so I read this in a book last year, and I, like you. Oh, first off, you read 242 books last year?
Yeah, that's
like,
a lot.
Holy smokes. Okay, so I read a lot of books last year. I get in the habit of reading the same book a few times if I really love it, because
Nice.
I want to build those concepts and create that muscle memory. So I don't remember if this was in your book or another leadership book. You'll remember. Obviously, you know your books.
Sure.
But it was the concept that if you increase your cost by 5%, if you don't lose you like 5% of the customers, then you're priced too low.
Yes, this is in my book.
Okay.
Good.
Okay.
Good memory.
Yes.
I'll take it. It's probably in other books too, but this is the idea is like price increases are a big deal. We should all be, it's January when we're recording this. We should all be thinking about, we just went through this at the end of December. We increase our prices. Now, it forces us to say, are we getting better every year? Right?
Right.
It also keeps up with inflation, because if you're not increasing your prices, then you're in essence decreasing your prices by saying everything else is more expensive, but we're not. And so you're just making your life harder on yourself. But it's also an interesting test. Do you have raving fans? Do you have quality? Because we'll push the price up. And sometimes people will be like, yeah, but I'll lose some customers. Well, that's not always a bad thing.
Right.
Depending on how many you lose and how much you increase. For example, we've done this, bump the price up 5%, and they lose 5% of their customers. We're like, well, we broke even for all that stress. Actually, no. You're making the same revenue and 95% of the cost. This is a good day.
Right.
And usually the customers who stay are the ones who love you more and are less hassle to deal with. So you're going to have more fun, make more profit at the end of the line. And so much so that we've pushed this with our clients. If you really want to build raving fans, you can't be the cheapo.
I was just about to say, this is the message I want people to hear, because having just come from my third startup where it was trying to convey to the rest of the leadership team, we don't have to be cheaper than everyone else. Right. What we do have to do, and the other thing, you talk a lot about the Lego example and about how you don't have to have a patent to be successful. The other thing the reason I've said this is so powerful and every company should be implementing this is because the world will catch up to whatever it is you're building.
Yes.
So this last company that I was at, I said, look, we're kind of first to market right now. People are smart.
Yep.
We won't be the only ones in the space for very long.
Welcome
okay.
to capitalism.
Exactly. Congratulations to everyone. I said, but I guarantee you this, they're not going to beat our service.
That's it. I can't tell you how many times I've seen this. The copycat product who doesn't have the same service. I'll pick on McDonald's again. They ran a Southern style chicken sandwich that was basically the Chick-fil-A sandwich. They said, well, the recipe's not identical. How so? Well, our pickles are on top, not on bottom. Genius. Okay, so it's the same sandwich. It did not sell. They discontinued it. It did not sell. You can copy the product. That is actually only a small part of the overall experience.
But most people are not willing to go that extra 10%.
Because I would say the product's the easy part.
The product is the easy part. Exactly.
The service might be the extra 90%.
Oh, yeah. There you go.
Because it's just that much harder to put a team together who gets it and puts the discipline and all the work of a good COO who does this stuff knows that's not easy to do.
No,
it's easy to copy
hard.
A product. And so they copy a product and think we got it. No, get out of the race to the bottom. Stop being the cheapo. Be the premium player. We'll even say to people, you should raise your price. If nobody's complaining about your price,
you should raise it.
Your price is too low.
Yeah.
You should have at least a minimum percentage of people who go through the process and say, too expensive.
Right.
Or you are telling everybody, I'm the cheap one.
Right, right. You're deflating your value. Okay, I have a hard question for you, and I actually have something for you to use in this hard because I feel like if you're gonna answer a hard question, you need a little bit of weaponry magic. Okay. And I happen to know, so we're gonna ask someone offset to come bring you a gift. I know you have, and I charged it for you, so you can turn it on.
Come on.
I know. I think you have to press and hold and then press it again. Now press it one more time and see if it starts. If it doesn't start coming, what did it do? It made a sound.
Oh, come on. Is it?
Okay, I know you already have one.
I'm trying not to hit you in the face here.
But that would be a good blooper. We would love that. We would love that.
That's awesome.
Okay.
All right, sorry. Leadership, something?
Yes. So in this, tell me about a company that you worked with that you walked away and felt maybe you weren't as successful as you wanted to. What were the lessons that you learned? And so I thought I would give you something comforting to you while you shared this vulnerable moment.
Yes, thank you. Thank you. Yeah, so I will, I'll turn,
That is so amazing.
Oh, this is awesome. Come on. So I can, it's like I'm getting, okay.
Yeah,
Nice.
yeah.
I'll turn it off for the sound feature, but I'm going to keep holding it because I don't know if you know, I have a sword collection and
that's
a
awesome.
custom lightsaber in my closet. So
I know you have one in your closet. It was in the book.
Yeah.
But I figured you could always use another one.
Oh, these are, I'm never going to say no to holding a good lightsaber. Okay, so yeah, okay, there's been multiple times in the early days when we were trying this out, trying to figure out how do we make this work. And I'll give you one obvious one that literally changed the diagram of the customer experience engine. We went in, we taught them all these cool tactics and things, but they didn't have a functional, healthy leadership team.
Which, to add to the fact I thought was hysterical on your podcast, you talk about that was the last chapter you wrote of the book and you almost left it out of the book.
It didn't even have it on the engine. It wasn't a part of the process. I'm like, listen, I've already written leadership books. This is the customer experience stuff. But when you get to this kind of level, you really need leaders who can collaborate with each other, share resources, hold each other accountable. I mean, do the necessary healthy functions of a leadership team. And they had a section of their team that was like, listen, I got my stuff. Don't get in my business. Very prickly, very private, very defensive. There's a lot of tension in that. And then they had another leader who talked a big game, but didn't follow through. And so nobody trusted her. And so this process, we came up with all these wonderful plans and all these great ideas, and he did it his own way and didn't communicate, and she never followed through on the stuff. And so these guys quit doing it, and in the process, they're like, well, I'm doing mine, but nobody knows. Like, I needed them to deliver me. We spent a year with them and got no benefit. And so literally now the first thing we do if we're going to do a long-term project is we sit with the individual leaders, figure out how bought in they are, and how good are they at actually collaborating and running a company together? Now, the mistake I see, this happened to be, I won't name the company because what ended up happening is we went back year two. The CEO got it, and we literally, two of that executive team left. Those two moved on, and we did another run
drop
at
of
this.
vinegars that spoiled the milk.
Yeah, really. And we took another run at it, and they went super successful. But we blew a lot of money and time year one and got nowhere. And so that's one. That's one of the big issues we found is like, if you don't have good leaders, if your Jedi council's not awesome.
Right.
I don't care how cool your plans are. It's not going to happen. The leadership team's got to buy it first. And if they buy it, then you can implement. Now, maybe if you just think, I want to do it in my division, great. Your division team has to buy it.
Right,
Whoever the leaders are have to all be pointed in the same direction. So that's one of the bigger issues. One of the other times we did this and it went badly was because we were with a fast growth, high action company and everyone else already had full-time jobs and a ton of things on their plates. And we came up with all our plans and we would go do stuff, but there's some part of it they have to do. The way we consult, we don't go in and do everything for them. There are some consulting setups, like we'll be that shop for you. We'll just like outsource us, we're the function. No, we like to run alongside the function and say, we're going to teach, mentor, give you the tools, walk along, give you the ideas. But I don't want to be the one you're dependent on. I want to make you capable so at the end of the day, you ride off in the sunset without me.
Which is the most challenging part about change management.
Very challenging. Yes, it is the hardest part. The easy part's the ideas.
Right.
So we got in there and they all bought it. They all believed it, but nobody owned it. There was no point person who was in charge of it. Well, technically it was the CEO.
Which you talk about in the book. That, and I have a card on it here somewhere, that you need to have, and maybe even, you said, maybe empower an upcoming rock star to own it.
Yes.
But someone has to own it, and it can't be the CEO who's out doing all these other fires.
Because it will end up being the leftover project.
Right.
Rightly so. Like the CEO wasn't wrong because they were like closing major deals or fixing a big issue or involved in hiring a key position. And those are company defining things. And so they would get to our stuff afterwards.
Right.
And some months there's no leftover time.
Right.
And so we would go 2 or 3 months and nothing had happened, and we'd try again. And you kept losing momentum, starting momentum. And so we finally had to say, it's now one of our rules. If we're going to do one of these long-term projects, who in your team that's not the CEO owns and drives this, and do they have capacity? What are they not going to do in order to do this?
Love
or
this.
have you hired a new role? Because if you don't put a leader on it, it doesn't happen. And in the book, I apply that especially to operational stuff.
Yep.
But for us as a consulting partner, we apply that principle to the whole project.
That is amazing.
Somebody isn't the point, not us, the point person in that company. All our cool ideas, everyone will think this is exciting, and then they'll go back to the whirlwind of their day job, and nothing will happen.
Okay. You brought your sleeping bag, right? So you could stay all day.
This is going to be awesome.
Okay. So the last question that I'll ask then is, can you talk about, and you talk about this in your podcast, and I was thinking about different examples, but you talk about the difference between memorable moments and personalized service. So I love both. Okay.
Yeah,
I can think of an example of, we had a customer at my previous company, and they did, their mouse that they had didn't work well with our software. They had this old fashioned mouse. And so I had said, well, we'll buy you another mouse. He's like, no, I like my mouse. So what I did is I bought him a rubber mouse, and I had it mailed there and delivered it there.
I love that.
Right.
That's
and
awesome.
in the next Zoom call that we had, he had the mouse on his shoulder. So we have a photo of it. But it was, and also he was brilliant. He figured out how to download a new driver for his mouse and make it work. So it was a triple win.
Win. Come on.
Right. And so I love being able to do that, because what I tell my team is, I believe in storytelling, right? And this customer now sees that we see them as a human being, not just a transaction.
Yes.
And this is the story they're going to tell. Okay. So I don't know if that's a memorable moment or personalized service. I don't know. But could you talk on your podcast that they are two distinct things?
Yeah, no, let's first own they come from the same place, and they have the same heart and theme, and it feels similar on the other end. This is not a unique question. I often
Right.
get this. Like, what's the difference? Because they both are, I want to do something special, something above and beyond the core service promise that makes them feel special and awesome. Here's the difference. Personalized service tends to be very unique to an individual. So I'm going to use your name. I'm going to talk to Angela. Mm-hmm. I can't generically talk to Angela's. Is Angela, right? And
right.
So you do specific name, and it's about a specific moment in time, something they're going through. A mouse. If you sent a rubber mouse to somebody else on the team, they'd be like, what are you doing? This
right,
makes
exactly.
no sense, right? There has
Exactly.
to be a story and a moment. And so it's a very personal thing. And the message behind a personalized service moment is, I see you. Okay. I notice you. As you said, you matter to me individually. I noticed this moment. Now, memorable moments. They also say, I see you, and you matter to me, and I love this stuff, and it's awesome. But here's the difference. A memorable moment is pre-planned and can be a group experience.
Okay.
Now, maybe you do an individual memorable moment. There's some versions of that. But think about, like, one of the classic memorable moments we talk about is a strong start. When you first kick off the project, or you first hire an employee, or whatever the beginning is, that beginning.
How you arrange their desk on their first day of work, and they feel loved or not. You do the arrangement for all new employees.
I'll brag on you. I showed up here, and outside the studio was a stanchion with my name on it. Now, you do have a sign that says recording in progress, right? Be quiet, all that. But you put welcome Scott Wozniak, right? And so, listen, that's unique to me. There's a personal piece that says, hey, there's Scott. But the memorable moment portion of it is when I also showed up. Hey, you pre-set up. You have this green room with snacks and a layout. And so, like, hey, take a moment to yourself, get a snack or a drink. And so everybody gets the cool green room, and only I get the Scott. Hopefully you don't put Scott Wozniak out for any of the other guests. That'll be weird.
That would be super awkward.
Like,
no.
What? Am I in the wrong spot? Right? So, like, you can mix these two. They often but the personalized stuff is personalized. It's to me. And the memorable moment is just something big and special that can be more generic. Hey, here's our new employee welcome package. And so maybe I use their name in the sign, but we have a standard set of gifts we give them. It's the company mug, it's tickets to a local game.
Right.
I'm going to put a little package of things together. This is how we kick off a project with a client, or endings can be memorable. Here's when we finally close it all down. Here's the grand ceremony we do. And maybe we bring in a whole cohort of people for that ceremony and have a group moment. That's more of a pre-planned, memorable moment that's going to happen. And then the personalized stuff tends to be more like, hey, this mouse thing happened, I'm shipping you a rubber mouse. Or something bad happens and I'm going to show up and we're going to talk to you about. So it's very responding to the moment.
Right.
So internally, the difference is this. Internally, we'll have a team and we'll give them a range of ideas and an open budget and say, when something cool happens, you can ship them a rubber mouse. You don't need to ask me questions. Ritz-Carlton does this.
Right.
They say, hey, you got a $2,000 limit. It's a big limit. Most people don't need that big of a limit, but if you stay at Ritz a lot,
everything
they can afford a $2,000 limit, right?
Exactly.
So, but they say I'm not telling you what to get them. It depends on what the customer issue is. You can spend up to $2,000 to fix it. Spill wine on their shirt, buy them a new shirt if the dry cleaning doesn't work, right? TV breaks, buy them tickets to the local movie theater so they can still watch a movie. So there's no rule, but they also have a welcome package that says when you first show up, the front people are trained. They actually are given your picture, and if you're a recurring guest,
right?
If you're a return guest, then they have your picture and all that stuff. And so like,
sometimes they know that you like Sprite and put it in the mini fridge.
That's exactly right.
Right.
Now that's a pre-planned memorable moment that says, hey, we know you're coming. We have a whole sequence we go through. When you walk in, here's your welcome experience.
Right.
And then something weird happens and they show up and do something personal. So the teams that run them, the way you budget them, the way you staff for them or train for them are different. But yeah, on the receiving side, it's just like, they gave me Sprite they remembered my Sprite, and oh, they fixed my shirt. And it's just all these lovely above the, over the top moments. But behind the scenes, one is systematized and happens the same way every time. And one is unique to each moment.
And to be super clear, use the example of the Ritz of giving a $2,000 budget. But these things can be super cheap. I think that mouse cost me like $8 with Amazon free shipping.
Thank you.
Printing out the welcome sign, I printed it on my printer this morning for you, right? Those are simple things that you can do. And the thing is, as well, or I want to say to leaders, that your team will love doing these things. Like everyone on my team loved it. Went into the Slack channel. We all laughed about that. It brought joy and happiness into the company, which is another thing that leaders should be able to do.
Yes, it makes them proud to be working with you. They're like, man, I'm the kind of person who gets to do this kind of stuff for customers.
Yeah.
Oh, it's the win-win on both sides of the equation. And you're right. Usually it's super cheap, especially the personalized stuff is really it's not about the money. One of my favorite personalized service moments is writing a handwritten note.
Yes. Yeah.
That's it.
Absolutely.
I try to write 3 a month. And I just send a note and you make it personal. It doesn't have to be 3 pages long. I do little like note cards this big. So I write in Sharpie. It's like 3 sentences, 4 tops. And then it can change somebody's day.
I mean, I send customers of mine a copy of your book. You saw what I write. I write something that is personalized to them. They're not pre-written. And I say something that ties to who they are as a human. And I tell them if they see anyone on my team not living these values to let me know. I give them my cell phone number and my email. And, the book is not too expensive on Amazon. I'm afraid that if I keep buying it, the price is going to go up. I need to get I need a connection to get a mass discount.
Okay, we'll talk. We'll talk.
So is there anything I have so many cards I could I think we have to do in episode 2 is all I'm just going to say.
Let's
okay,
do
good.
Let's do it.
Is there anything that you really hoped we would cover today that we haven't covered?
Man, there's as you said a ton of things we could cover. I might just say I truly love helping people. And you're right, we scratched the surface of this fun stuff. So if they want to get more of my free content, we've got a newsletter. I've actually got, this is classic me, we should do a newsletter. So I did 2. We should do a podcast. So I did 3. So I would say I've got the simple where it's all shuffled down to is this. I've got a podcast and newsletter for individual leaders on their own personal growth. How do I develop myself as a leader and make the best of myself? And then we've got a podcast and newsletter on organizational stuff. Like, how do I build these systems? What are the tactics I use with my team? How do I pricing and all this other stuff? And so I'd say check both of those things out. And
on swozconsulting.com.
That's what I was going to say. Swoz Consulting, SWOZ consulting.com. That's probably the easiest hub to go find out what we do and do all that stuff and sign up for the newsletters, check out the podcasts.
And actually, they can register and take your academy, leadership academy.
Thank you for remember, we have Legendary Brands Academy, and it's our online course. So we've been doing 22 years now. I've been doing this like high-end consulting, elite stuff inside companies, right? Chick-fil-A pulled me in, and I do travel the world going inside all these cool things. And only last year, 6 months ago, we launched this. And about a year or so ago, I was like, I really don't have anything for the maybe smaller company or the team leader who doesn't have the time or budget to hire the whole team to come to a custom project. So we took all our elite consulting stuff and we turned it into videos and spreadsheets and tools and kind of explained, hey, here's what we would do with a client. You do it. Like, here's our thinking. Here's the tool. You go have fun with it. So that's what we've got. And
you stand behind your brand, because I looked it up and you even say if at the end you feel like this wasn't a value to you or you just can't afford it, we'll give you your money back.
If it doesn't create value, then I don't want to do it.
Right. Yeah. Okay, I lied. I know Katie's going to be mad at me. She's like, you're supposed to stick to an hour. I lied saying that was my last question. I have one more question.
Bring it.
What was your most incredible, embarrassing costume that you wore as a kid? So what was it that you did? And you had all of these costumes and stuff.
So I was a child actor.
Yep.
I did my first play when I was 4. My mom was a theater director. So I got in early and I did over 60 shows. So there's a lot of options that I could consider. But I think the one, but I should say, I'm really glad I grew up in the age before Facebook and Instagram, because
we both did.
There's not photographic evidence, a lot of this stuff. My kids, like, everything's out there. So
I had a former employee who was a child actor too, and he starred in a shower head commercial. We had so much fun on that.
Well, okay, so I did a little bit of film and mostly live stage, which means most of these guys have like limits. They can't film and record it and put it out there to the public. So yeah, there was I was in Carousel, which is a pretty fun show and some cool stuff. And anyways, Carousel has a kind of a traveling carny crew in it. And I was the bad guy in this play. And so I dressed, there was at one point where I showed up early with yellow fishnet shirt. That's it. Just yellow fishnets, super tight pants, and this kind of bright, sparkly red sequin thing on my head. Yellow fishnet shirts. Not.
I love it. I love it.
I didn't even want to put that on like in a dressing room. I'd wait till the last second, and as soon as that scene was over, I'd rip that thing off. Yeah, there were some fun times.
Okay, so a requirement of this podcast, you share your favorite motivational quote. What's yours?
Man, there's so many, but I will go back to the first leadership book and one of the first things that really shifted me. And it actually is kind of where we started. John Maxwell. Mm-hmm. Super fun because my book's now published with John and his team. So I've gotten to meet him and work with his team and him, even been at events with him, sit at the table and talk. So, but John, way back in the day before he knew who I was, man, this quote shifted me a lot. I was in that dark place, frustrated, complaining. And here's the quote. It said, pessimists complain about the wind. Optimists hope it's going to change, and leaders adjust the sail.
So powerful.
And that was the challenge to me. Is like, this thing isn't working. I was one of the nice guys who were bad leaders. It's not working. So I can either quit, I can either hope it just gets better with the next company, or I could do something about it. And so maybe I'd say that applies to customer experience, to leadership, to all this stuff. It's not magic. It's not luck. You can build a system. You can change personally. Your company can change. All the greats went through this process. You can too.
Amazing, amazing. Well, as we say, thank you for bringing the badass and putting it into our podcast. I really appreciate it.
My pleasure.
Alrighty, thank you.
Thanks for joining me for today's episode of the Badass Leaders Podcast. To hear more interviews with industry experts and learn how to grow your career and leadership potential, be sure to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications to ensure you do not miss future episodes. This podcast is a production of the AGN Group in collaboration with Bedhead Media. To learn more about the AGN Group, visit our website at theagnGroup.com. There you can discover more about our services, which include hosting workshops, management consulting, brand strategy, keynote speaking, and more. Make sure you follow us on all social media channels. We've listed them both on the screen and in the show notes. And until next week, be brave and be badass.